The afternoon light falls gently over the modest neighborhood where Fernando Silva grew up, painting the cracked pavement and aging brick walls in warm, golden tones. At 24, with short, curly black hair and eyes that shine with both determination and lingering doubt, he steps out of the small apartment he shares with his family. He breathes in the familiar scent of cooking spices and distant car exhaust, the routine hum of everyday life that somehow both comforts him and pushes him forward. He knows this place well, but it's never felt more like a stepping stone, one he hopes will lead him to a future so different from the one most would predict. From the moment he learned how to tinker with old computers salvaged from a local community center, Fernando dreamed of creating something transformative. Not just a product or a service, but a platform capable of changing how people connect, mentor, and innovate. His vision, a technology hub that bridges gaps for minority entrepreneurs and innovators, giving them a real shot at success. Yet, like so many dreams, his come with heavy baggage, subtle discrimination that sometimes cloaks itself in polite smiles, the frustration of being constantly underestimated, and the simple, ever-present challenge of having very limited funds to even get started. Inside the cramped living room, his mother, Carla, is ironing shirts for tomorrow's flea market, where she plans to sell handmade crafts. She looks up with a gentle smile as Fernando enters. Carla's eyes reflect pride and worry all at once, pride in the son who dares to imagine a better path and worry that this world may not make room for him. His father, Roberto, works long hours at a local factory and often comes home exhausted, but he never fails to ask Fernando about his progress, about which angle he's exploring to secure initial investment. And then there's Lucas, his younger brother, who at 15 watches Fernando's every move, eager and impressed, soaking in his example as though it might teach him the secret to escaping these narrow streets and preconceived notions. Fernando knows that in the tech world he admires, one dominated by glossy investor presentations and upscale networking events, someone like him often finds the doors closed. He's aware that subtle biases run deep. He's experienced them firsthand, in the gentle yet dismissive tone of potential partners who compliment his idea but never call back, in the quick sideways glance of a funding panel that moves on too soon, as if he were never truly in the running. These moments leave him feeling both frustrated and fired up, determined to break through the quiet barriers that surround him. Today he's meeting with a distant acquaintance who once mentioned knowing someone with connections. It's a long shot, but that's the currency Fernando deals in: hopes, long shots, and the inner fire that refuses to go out. He walks down uneven sidewalks, passing neighbors who recognize his focused gaze. An older woman waves, remembering him as a curious child who asked too many questions. A group of teens lounge on the corner, listening to music and glancing his way, some of them secretly inspired that he's trying to do something different, something grand. He arrives at a small cafe that smells of espresso and cinnamon. As he waits, sipping a cup of coffee he can barely afford, he replays his pitch in his mind. He'll explain why this platform matters. It's not just another business tool, it's a way to give minority founders a fair chance, to match them with mentors who understand their struggles and with investors genuinely interested in diversity. He wants to say all this in a way that conveys urgency and passion without sounding desperate. He wants them to see what he sees, the latent brilliance in communities often overlooked. But when the contact finally arrives, they're late and distracted. The conversation feels rushed. While Fernando tries to convey his vision, his acquaintance seems more interested in checking their phone. The subtle eye roll, the half-hearted encouragement, these are familiar signals that they don't really believe in him, that they see him as a young dreamer who'll likely fade away. He leaves with a polite handshake and an emptiness gnawing at his chest. It's another closed door, another reminder that he's traveling a steep road. On his walk back home, he considers giving up, at least for a moment. It would be easier to settle for something smaller, something safer. But the image of Carla's proud smile, Lucas's hopeful eyes, and Roberto's tired but encouraging nods weigh heavily in his mind. Giving up would mean confirming the assumptions of those who never gave him a chance. It would mean letting down not just himself, but the people who believe in him, who rely on him to challenge the status quo. He returns to the small apartment where Carla has saved him a plate of rice and beans, warm and comforting. Over dinner, the family discusses the day. He's honest about the disappointment, the feeling that he's running into a wall. Roberto listens quietly, then offers a few words: if the front door won't open, you might need to build your own door. Carla nods, agreeing that sometimes you must find another path entirely. Lucas chimes in, his youthful enthusiasm shining through. People who don't see your worth don't deserve your ideas, he says, trying out wisdom beyond his years. In the glow of their cramped kitchen, Fernando absorbs their faith and decides he won't let go of his vision. Later that night, as he sits by the narrow window looking out over darkened rooftops, he imagines what the future could hold. He sees a platform bringing people together, a digital space where entrepreneurs from neighborhoods like his can connect with mentors who get it, who understand the challenges of starting with nothing. He imagines success stories blooming in places no one ever thought to look. He envisions a world where being who he is, black, determined, creative, isn't a hurdle but a strength. He's aware that tomorrow will bring new hurdles. He knows that subtle racism doesn't vanish overnight, that funds don't magically appear because of one good pitch, and that he might have to knock on 100 doors before one opens. But he also knows he's not alone. His family stands behind him, and he's certain that somewhere out there are people who will listen, who will see the potential, who will open their minds to innovation born from struggle. As he finally goes to sleep, the seeds of ambition he planted long ago feel alive and ready to grow. He might be in a modest neighborhood with limited resources, but that doesn't define him. Fernando Silva is more than his circumstances. He is someone who dares to imagine a different tech landscape, one that includes voices and faces like his. That daring alone is reason enough to keep pushing forward. Tomorrow, he'll search for new approaches, reach out to new contacts, and keep believing in the value of his idea. And with each step, he moves a bit closer to turning that distant dream into a tangible, thriving reality. Fernando wakes up earlier than usual, his mind still buzzing with the half-formed ideas and restless dreams that occupied his sleep. The smell of coffee drifts from the kitchen, and he hears the low murmur of his parents exchanging quiet words, as if trying not to disturb the delicate hope that's settled over their home. The day ahead feels heavier than the last, and he's no stranger to that weight. He has calls scheduled with potential investors, people he needs to believe in his platform's value, but a part of him braces for what he's come to expect, subtle dismissals, carefully coded language that leaves him feeling small and unworthy. He sits at a makeshift desk in the living room, his laptop balanced on a worn wooden table that has seen countless family meals and hurried homework sessions. He's prepared a concise pitch deck, polished it until every sentence feels purposeful. He's read about investors who claim to appreciate diverse voices, but in practice, he's discovered how often those words fail to translate into real support. He tries not to let that sour his mood. He's determined to remain professional, passionate, and unshaken, no matter what they say. The first video call connects, and Fernando's heart thuds as he greets the small panel of three faces. They introduce themselves briskly, and he launches into his presentation. He speaks clearly and confidently about the platform's potential to connect underrepresented entrepreneurs with resources and mentors who understand their struggles. He outlines how this will foster innovation, open markets, and ultimately benefit not just the individuals but the entire economy. The silence that follows his pitch lasts a breath too long, then one investor smiles thinly and says they're not sure it aligns with their current interests. Another asks why he thinks a product like this is needed in today's already crowded tech landscape. Their tone remains polite, almost gracious, but there's a distance in their eyes, an unwillingness to see him as an equal player. Within minutes, the call ends with vague compliments and no real commitments. By midday, he's repeated this pattern twice more. One investor praises his ambition but claims they've just closed their budget for the quarter, no room left. Another suggests he target a more specialized niche, as if the community Fernando aims to serve is too niche to matter. The cumulative effect of these meetings settles in his chest, a mix of anger and sadness. He's not naive, he knew this path would be steep. Yet facing people who can't see beyond their preconceived notions hurts more than he cares to admit. He takes a break, stepping outside for fresh air. The sky above the neighborhood is a pale blue, and he can hear distant laughter and the hum of a passing truck. He thinks about how his own community teems with creativity, how many brilliant minds never get the chance to prove themselves because they lack the right contacts, the right credibility, and eyes unaccustomed to seeing potential in someone like him. He reminds himself that these rejections, rooted in unspoken bias, are not an indictment of his worth, but rather a reflection of a flawed system. When he returns home, his mother, Carla, reads his expression immediately. She doesn't ask too many questions. Her look alone is enough to convey understanding. His father, Roberto, clears his throat and suggests that sometimes a direct path isn't the best one. Maybe, he says, Fernando needs to think differently about how to fund this. Maybe small investors from the community, maybe a crowdfunding campaign, or partnerships with organizations that have social impact at their core. Lucas, leaning in from the hallway, mutters that big investors are overrated anyway, trying to make his brother smile. It works, if only for a moment. At the kitchen table, the family discusses how obstacles can force innovation. Carla points out that sometimes the lack of easy money leads to more creative solutions. She's seen this in her own life, making do with limited resources and turning scraps into something beautiful. Roberto notes that adversity can sharpen your vision. Maybe these rejections will help Fernando refine his platform further, ensuring it's so compelling that no one can deny its worth. Lucas nods vigorously, eager to believe that these setbacks are only temporary hurdles. That evening, Fernando focuses on rethinking his approach. If the traditional investment route is filled with gatekeepers who fail to recognize the value of his idea, he'll carve another path. Maybe he can partner with local community organizations known for their advocacy, tapping into grants or supportive business alliances that share his mission. Maybe he can set up a pre-registration campaign and show early user interest, building data and testimonials before approaching investors again. If the world tries to box him in, he'll expand beyond that box. The next morning, he sends emails to a few contacts in minority entrepreneurship groups he's heard about. He introduces himself and his concept, not asking for funds just yet, but for advice, introductions, and insights. To his relief, a few responses come back promptly, messages from people who understand the struggle and offer guidance or leads. He sees a glimmer of hope. If the big players ignore him, perhaps smaller, more grassroots connections will help him lay the foundation he needs. He also calls Elena Ramirez, an old friend he hasn't spoken to in a while, who's now building her own career in tech. She's one of the most brilliant minds he knows, and if anyone can help him navigate these barriers, it's her. Elena listens carefully to his experiences, sighing at how predictable these prejudices can be, and assures him that together they can strengthen his proposal. She suggests new angles to highlight the platform's unique selling points, stressing community-based success stories and tangible social impact that could attract mission-driven investors rather than the traditional profit-first crowd. At night, as he sits on the edge of his bed, he reflects on the past few days. He's experienced setbacks and subtle discrimination, but none of it has broken him. Instead, it's fueling a fire inside. He's realized that each door slamming in his face teaches him something: how to craft a sharper narrative, how to find unlikely allies, how to transform frustration into a catalyst for growth. His family's unwavering belief in him, Elena's forthcoming support, and the solidarity of strangers who share his journey give him strength. He understands now that these biases and obstacles are not personal failures. They're symptoms of a larger system that he hopes his platform can help dismantle, at least in part. By persisting, by innovating, he can chip away at these barriers. He imagines that one day, another young entrepreneur will walk a bit more confidently because Fernando helped forge a path. Before sleeping, he jots down a new plan in a well-worn notebook, a revised pitch emphasizing community partnerships, a crowdfunding campaign to gain grassroots momentum, a timeline for rolling out a beta version of the platform even with limited funds. He'll prove what this platform can do on a small scale, then scale up. This might be a tougher route, but it's also one that aligns with his values that say everyone deserves a fair shot, that greatness can emerge from unexpected places. He closes his eyes, no longer burdened by the day's disappointments. Instead, he's lifted by a quiet conviction that he will find a way. He's seen that behind every rejection lies a chance to refine his mission. He is still on the road toward making his vision a reality, and nothing, not prejudice, not lack of funds, not dismissive investors, will strip him of his determination. Fernando heads out just after sunrise, a hint of coolness still lingering in the air. He's nervous and excited as he makes his way to the community center where a group of minority entrepreneurs meets every week. After the setbacks he's faced, he craves a space where he can be honest about his struggles and learn from others who understand the complexity of his journey. He's tired of rooms where his background and ideas are met with polite smiles and swift rejections. He wants a room where people get it, where they feel the same urgency to challenge a status quo that has never quite made room for them. The community center is a modest building with bright murals painted on its exterior. Inside, the hall smells of coffee and fresh pastry dough. Folding chairs form a circle, and about a dozen people have already gathered, chatting quietly. Some look as uncertain as Fernando feels, others wear an air of calm confidence. As he steps into the room, his presence barely stirs the group, no suspicious glances, no condescending smiles. Just a warm, open atmosphere that tells him, this is a place where your story matters. He takes a seat and waits for the session to begin. A few chairs down, someone introduces themselves to a newcomer with a handshake and a reassuring grin. Soon, a man in his late 30s steps into the center of the circle. He's wearing a casual blazer, his posture relaxed yet attentive. This must be Miguel Torres, the experienced entrepreneur who leads these gatherings. Miguel's voice fills the space with an easy confidence, encouraging everyone to speak freely about their challenges and successes. Over the next hour, Fernando listens as people share their experiences. There's a young woman working on a cultural craft marketplace who struggled to find distributors willing to take her seriously. A pair of friends try to launch a new app for mental health support in underserved neighborhoods and have hit countless walls attempting to secure seed funding. Another participant talks about balancing a day job while building a small beverage brand on the side. As they speak, Fernando feels something shift in him. Here, he doesn't feel alone or singled out. He realizes that the issues he's facing aren't personal failures, but patterns rooted in deep systemic barriers. When it's his turn, he speaks about his platform designed to connect minority entrepreneurs to mentors, investors, and resources. He's candid about the rejections, the subtle prejudices, the frustration that fuels him. Unlike previous meetings with outsiders, this time his words resonate. Heads nod in understanding. A few offer immediate suggestions. Have you considered partnering with a nonprofit that supports business education? Have you thought of highlighting success stories as proof of concept? After the meeting, as the group disperses, Miguel approaches him. Up close, Miguel's eyes reflect empathy and a hint of amusement, as though he sees in Fernando a younger version of himself. They shake hands, and Miguel's grip feels reassuring. He compliments Fernando's idea, saying it's about time someone built something truly inclusive in this space. He offers to meet over coffee later in the week to discuss strategies. He knows a few people who might be interested in supporting a platform like this, people who care about impact as much as profit. This encounter leaves Fernando energized. As he steps outside, he pulls his phone from his pocket and scrolls through old contacts. There's a name he hasn't reached out to in a while, Elena Ramirez. They went to school together, and even then, he admired her sharp mind and passion for technology. She left the neighborhood for a while, earned a name for herself in a startup that went global, but he recently heard she was back in the city. Maybe it's time to reconnect. He sends her a brief message, congratulating her on her achievements and mentioning he'd love to catch up. To his surprise, Elena replies within minutes, "I'm free this afternoon. Let's meet at that old cafe near the library." Later that day, he finds himself at a tiny cafe that smells of chocolate and fresh bread. Elena enters with a confident stride, her eyes bright and curious. She's changed, more self-assured, with a certain calm that comes from having navigated complex worlds, but her warmth is still there. They embrace, and Fernando realizes how good it feels to see a familiar face that believes in his potential without hesitation. They order coffee, and Elena asks him to explain his platform in detail. He does, telling her about his vision, the obstacles he's faced, and how he wants to leverage technology to create a supportive ecosystem for minority entrepreneurs. She listens intently, occasionally asking pointed questions. Her knowledge of the tech industry's inner workings proves invaluable. She suggests angles he never considered, like integrating data analytics to show investor interest or creating a curated mentor matching system that increases the chances of meaningful connections. Elena also tells him that while overt discrimination in tech circles might be less common, the subtle biases and lack of networks often speak louder than words. She admires his courage in tackling this issue head-on. "Your platform could be the missing link for a lot of people who have great ideas, but no clear path," she says. Her enthusiasm reignites the spark within him, reminding him why he started this in the first place. Over the next few days, Fernando falls into a productive rhythm. He attends another meeting at the community group, taking notes on advice given by fellow entrepreneurs and Miguel's practical tips for navigating bureaucracy and finding allies. He schedules a follow-up coffee with Miguel, who offers to introduce him to a small network of impact investors, people who prioritize social good alongside returns. Fernando refines his pitch deck again, this time including case studies of hypothetical users to illustrate how the platform can break down barriers one entrepreneur at a time. In the evenings, he and Elena exchange emails, sketches of potential user interfaces, and outlines of features like a directory of vetted mentors and an integrated chat function. She sends him links to open-source tools and grants he might qualify for. Together, they strategize how to roll out a beta version that could attract an initial community of supporters. With her technical know-how and his vision, they form a complementary team that is greater than the sum of its parts. His family notices a new lightness in his step. Over dinner, he talks about the people he's meeting, the insights he's gaining, the feeling that he's part of something bigger than himself. Carla smiles, relieved to see her son finding allies. Roberto, proud but ever the practical thinker, asks how he'll manage finances as he enters this next phase. Fernando grins, explaining that with Miguel and Elena's help, he's zeroing in on more sustainable options, maybe a small grant here, a microloan there, or even a crowdfunding campaign backed by people who truly believe in his mission. Lucas is fascinated by the idea of a platform that can connect talent with opportunity. He imagines all the ways it could help him when he's older, maybe to start his own business or break into a field he never thought possible. He throws ideas at Fernando, who welcomes them all. The younger brother's enthusiasm reminds Fernando of the responsibility he carries, not just for himself, but for future generations who should never have to feel inferior or excluded. By the end of the week, Fernando feels stronger and more anchored in his purpose. He has Miguel's seasoned perspective, Elena's technical brilliance, and a community group that validates his experiences. He's incorporating their insights into his platform's design, ensuring it's not just his vision but a collective effort shaped by many minds. The seed he planted long ago is now sprouting leaves, nourished by trust, collaboration, and a shared desire to reshape the entrepreneurial landscape. He still faces challenges, no illusions about that. But each step forward proves that success isn't only measured in funding rounds closed or prestigious investors wooed. Success can also be the growth of resilience, the forging of new alliances, and the quiet confidence gained from knowing that even in a world slow to change, there are places where people stand together, encouraging each other to imagine the impossible and then make it real. Fernando sits in a cramped co-working space downtown, a place that hums with the low murmur of keyboards, whispered conversations, and the faint scent of paper and ink. This environment, though modest and a bit chaotic, feels like a step up, a tangible symbol that his vision is no longer just words on a page, but a living project taking shape line by line, pixel by pixel. He's traded the comfort of his family's kitchen table for narrow desks and wobbly chairs, yet here he finds himself surrounded by people who radiate ambition and creativity. The air itself seems charged with potential. Elena sits opposite him, her laptop open and eyes fixed on her screen with intense focus. She taps at the keys, sometimes pausing to run a hand through her hair or adjust her glasses. Fernando, at his own desk, refines a roadmap on a large notepad, scrawling notes and drawing arrows between concepts. He occasionally looks up, and Elena meets his gaze with a small smile that says they're on the same wavelength. They might be exhausted, but they share a mission worth every ounce of effort. Today's priority is ironing out the user experience for the platform's beta version. Fernando wants each entrepreneur who logs in to feel welcomed and empowered, not intimidated. They've decided on a simple, intuitive interface, a profile page to showcase talents and goals, a directory of mentors and investors that can be filtered by industry or expertise, and a resource library brimming with articles, videos, and case studies. Elena moves swiftly between design tools, mocking up prototypes that combine sleek visuals with warm, inclusive imagery. They break at midday for a quick coffee from the corner kiosk in the co-working space. It's watery and a bit bitter, but it fuels their determination. Over the small round table, they compare notes on what's left to tackle. Elena suggests adding a personalized recommendation engine that matches entrepreneurs with mentors based on shared interests or similar challenges overcome. Fernando lights up at the idea. This kind of thoughtful matching could set them apart from generic business platforms. He scribbles it down, eager to incorporate it. In the afternoons, the co-working space gets busier. A startup founder on a nearby table paces while on a call. Another team celebrates a small victory with hushed cheers, and somewhere in the background, a printer hums monotonously. This environment, buzzing with the energy of people trying to make dreams real, inspires Fernando and Elena to keep pushing. Their synergy becomes more evident with each passing hour. Fernando's strategic thinking blends seamlessly with Elena's technical expertise, and vice versa. They challenge each other, refine ideas, and pull the best from one another's skill sets. As the day fades into evening, they often realize they've skipped dinner. Sometimes, they order takeout, simple sandwiches or salads delivered with a polite knock at the co-working space door. They eat quickly, exchanging insights between bites. They tweak code, debate color schemes, and envision how to create a community forum where entrepreneurs can discuss challenges and trade tips. Every tiny decision matters, each a brushstroke painting a bigger picture. Late at night, when the bustle quiets, the room takes on a different character. Most people have gone home, and only a handful of dedicated souls remain, hunched over their work. The sound of distant traffic filters in through tall windows. Under the glow of desk lamps, Fernando and Elena speak in softer voices. Without the day's distractions, their conversations turn more reflective. They talk about the meaning behind their effort, how this platform might help someone like Fernando, who once felt sidelined at investor meetings, or how it could encourage an aspiring entrepreneur to pursue a dream instead of giving up at the first rejection. Elena admits she never imagined she'd find such purpose in another's vision. She's grateful Fernando reached out when he did. Fernando, in turn, acknowledges how invaluable her skill set and insight are. She's taken a concept born from frustration and helped shape it into something elegant, functional, and poised to make a difference. Her technical acumen transforms vague ideas into workable features, while he keeps the bigger picture in sight, ensuring they never lose track of why they're doing this. On weekends, they meet Miguel for coffee at a nearby cafe. He offers practical advice on scaling the platform and suggests inviting a small group of entrepreneurs to test the beta version before an official launch. He believes in the power of early feedback to catch issues they can't foresee themselves. Fernando and Elena embrace this idea, agreeing to assemble a small advisory cohort, members from the community group, and maybe a few of Elena's trusted contacts in the tech world. Listening to real users will ensure the final product resonates with those it's meant to serve. Carla and Roberto sometimes swing by the co-working space, bringing homemade snacks. They rarely stay long. This environment is unfamiliar, a world of laptops and silent concentration, but their presence warms Fernando's heart. Lucas, too, drops in occasionally after school, watching quietly as his brother hunches over code and dashboards. He's impressed by how Fernando and Elena bounce ideas back and forth, how they wear perseverance like a second skin. It assures him that dreams aren't just made of ethereal hopes, they're built from late nights, tired eyes, and constant refinement. As the platform inches closer to a workable prototype, Fernando feels a swelling pride. Yes, this is still the early stage, and countless challenges lie ahead, but he can see the shape of what they're creating. The pages on the screen, the lines of code, the conversation scrawled on sticky notes stuck to the wall, all of it converges into a tool that can level the playing field for those historically shut out. He envisions the new generation of entrepreneurs who, thanks to this platform, won't have to knock on locked doors because they'll find them wide open here. By the time they close their laptops each night, often long after midnight, Fernando and Elena feel a mixture of fatigue and exhilaration. They walk out under streetlights that glitter in quiet streets, buoyed by the realization that every small victory over code bugs or design dilemmas brings them closer to a public debut. They imagine the day they'll unveil this creation to entrepreneurs far and wide, offering them a tangible path to resources once hidden behind opaque networks and biases. Lying in bed, Fernando can't help but smile into the darkness. He's tired, yes, but it's a satisfying tired. He's building something that matters, and he's not doing it alone. The synergy with Elena, the support from Miguel and his family, and the memory of all those who share his struggles feed his resolve. Soon, this platform will go live, and with it, a spark will be lit in corners of the world where innovation too often goes unseen. And that's the kind of legacy worth losing sleep over. Fernando sits in the co-working space, fingers hovering over his keyboard, staring at lines of code that suddenly seem more complex than usual. The platform's beta launch is just around the corner, a milestone he's envisioned countless times. But now that it's so close, doubt drapes itself over his shoulders like a heavy shawl he can't shake off. He's poured months of work, countless late nights, and a piece of his heart into this creation. Yet, the thought of making it public stirs up anxiety that tugs at his stomach. He's received a few negative comments already, passed along by acquaintances who heard about his project and remain skeptical. Some claim it's too niche, others say it's too ambitious. One comment in particular sticks in his mind, posted anonymously on a minor forum: "Good intentions won't pay the bills." This so-called inclusive platform is just another pipe dream from someone who can't cut it in the real world. Fernando reads it over and over, the words echoing in his head. He knows he shouldn't give it power, but the sting is real. Technical hiccups add to his worries. A recent test run revealed a glitch in the mentor matching algorithm. Elena is on it, working methodically to fix the bug, but the reminder that things can go wrong is unsettling. The platform's reputation hinges on the user's first impression. One bad experience could undermine all their careful planning. He sits hunched over, brainstorming contingencies. Can they postpone if needed? Can they launch with fewer features but greater stability? Miguel stops by that afternoon, noticing the tension in Fernando's posture. Without preamble, he invites Fernando to step outside for a breath of fresh air. They wander onto the sidewalk, where the afternoon sun casts long shadows across the pavement. Miguel, arms folded, leans against the building's brick wall and speaks quietly. He's been here before, on the verge of launching something he believed in, afraid the world would reject it. He assures Fernando that fear is natural, even beneficial. Fear means he cares. It means he's taking risks. Miguel's gaze is steady as he reminds Fernando of all the ground he's covered. The platform isn't just an idea anymore, it's a functioning product, born from courage and necessity. When they return inside, Elena meets them with a small nod. She's fixed the bug. She also adds the new error handling routine, just in case. Her calm competence soothes Fernando. He remembers when he first reconnected with her, how her belief in his vision seemed effortless, how she could see a path forward where he only saw obstacles. It's a comforting thought. If Elena isn't panicking, maybe he shouldn't either. At home that night, Fernando shares his anxieties with his family over dinner. Carla listens patiently, her eyes full of empathy. Roberto reassures him, every business, every startup, faces doubters. Those who dismiss him without giving him a chance are not his true audience. Lucas pipes up with unexpected wisdom: if they don't see the value now, you'll show them. That's what a beta is for, right? The conversation shifts the energy in the room. Where Fernando felt alone in his worries, he now feels buoyed by a family that trusts him to rise above. Still, the insecurities linger. Before bed, Fernando pulls out his notebook and jots down the worst-case scenarios. What if no one signs up? What if the platform crashes? What if early adopters hate the interface? Then he counters each fear with a plan. If signups are slow, he'll reach out personally to the entrepreneurs he's met through the community group. If there's a crash, Elena will be on standby to fix it. If the interface confuses people, they'll collect feedback and iterate quickly. By the time he's done, these fears feel less monstrous, more like problems that can be solved rather than verdicts on his worth. A few days before the beta launch, he meets with a handful of community group members for a final test. Miguel is there, along with several entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. He watches them log in, create profiles, explore mentor listings, and browse resources. He nervously follows their reactions, bracing for frowns or sighs of disappointment. Instead, he sees curious smiles, hears small exclamations of approval. One entrepreneur points out a minor typo in a tooltip, another suggests a clearer label for a drop-down menu. Far from discouraging him, these remarks give him tangible ways to improve. They are reminders that the platform doesn't have to be perfect on day one. It just has to be receptive, adaptable, and genuinely helpful. That evening, Elena and Fernando share a coffee at their usual corner spot in the co-working lounge. She acknowledges that doubt is a part of this process. "You know," she says, tapping a pen against her mug, "every startup I've been involved in had these moments. Moments when you're sure everything will fall apart. But that's just the fear talking." She looks him in the eye. "We've tested. We've prepared. We have support. And we're doing this for the right reasons, which is more than most can say." His family's support lingers in his mind, a comforting backdrop. Carla and Roberto reminded him that he's never failed alone, he's always had them in his corner. Lucas teased him that worrying too much would give him wrinkles before his time, and Fernando had to laugh. Humor, he realizes, is another tool in his kit to keep perspective. On the last night before the beta launch, Fernando sits alone with his laptop, reviewing code and notes one final time. He's done everything he can. The platform might still stumble, users might still find issues, but that's part of growth. He realizes that fear of public failure is really fear of being judged, of having his identity and dreams dismissed. But he's learned so much along this journey, setbacks have sharpened his resolve, the community has shown him he's not alone, and those who care about him have demonstrated that one moment of failure does not define a lifetime of effort. He closes his eyes and recalls the initial spark that fueled this vision, the frustration at being locked out of rooms where decisions were made, the desire to create a space that welcomes rather than excludes. That purpose remains strong, and purpose is a powerful antidote to fear. He smiles to himself. If he can take this step, if he can roll out the beta and learn from the results, he'll be one step closer to transforming an industry that too often ignores people like him. As he drifts off to sleep, he decides that this launch is not a test of his worth, but a step in a continuing journey. Setbacks won't define him, how he responds to them will. He can almost hear Miguel's calm voice reminding him that success is never final, and failure is never fatal, as long as you keep pushing forward. With this in mind, Fernando awakens the next day ready to face whatever comes, guided by his vision, his allies, and an unshakable determination that cannot be extinguished by doubt. Fernando stands backstage at the local exhibition hall, his heart pounding in his chest. Through a small gap in the curtain, he can see a crowd milling about, entrepreneurs, mentors, reporters, and curious members of the community. Some sip drinks from a pop-up cafe in the corner, others flip through pamphlets describing his platform's features. The soft hum of conversation and distant laughter buzzes in the air. He's practiced his speech countless times, yet now, standing on the verge of his biggest public moment, the words tangle in his mind. He inhales slowly, reminding himself why he's here. Elena is beside him, reviewing the live demo on her tablet. Miguel arrives, quietly placing a hand on Fernando's shoulder. No words are needed, the gesture alone says, "You're ready." Fernando straightens his jacket, smoothing the lapels, and steps onto the stage as the announcer's voice fades. The sudden brightness of the spotlight catches him off guard for an instant, but he recovers quickly, scanning the room and allowing himself one small smile. This is the day he's worked toward, where concept meets reality, where private ambition becomes public purpose. He begins by addressing the audience with warmth and sincerity. He thanks them for coming, acknowledging the variety of faces before him, veteran entrepreneurs who paved the way, hungry newcomers searching for a breakthrough, mentors who've guided countless dreams, and community members curious about what his platform can do. He explains the platform's mission, weaving in personal anecdotes of his struggles, recounting how systemic barriers nearly derailed his path. He speaks of the many bright ideas that never see the light of day because people lack access to networks, mentors, or capital. As he talks, a hush settles over the crowd. They lean in, understanding this is not just another product pitch, this is a call to action. Fernando's voice steadies, growing more confident with each sentence. He talks about how technology can level playing fields, how connecting the right people can change trajectories. He avoids corporate jargon, opting for a narrative that places humans at the heart of innovation. He describes entrepreneurs who, thanks to this platform, might find their first investor or mentors who can guide them through early challenges. He explains how the platform curates resources to help founders overcome common pitfalls, navigate tricky legal documents, or simply find moral support in others who've walked the same road. There's a ripple of approval when he mentions that the platform is launching a beta today, open to a select group of users who've signed up early. Elena, working a console at the side of the stage, gives him a subtle thumbs up. Everything's running smoothly on the technical side. But just as he's about to show the demo, the screen behind him flickers. For a second, Fernando's heart lurches. Is something wrong? He glances toward Elena. She frowns, taps a few keys, then nods reassuringly. The screen stabilizes, and his prepared demo page comes up, crisp and user-friendly. He walks the audience through a sample mentor search, showing them how an aspiring entrepreneur can filter mentors by industry, experience level, or even language. He highlights community features, discussion boards for exchanging advice, a resource library filled with articles about pitching, marketing, and scaling businesses. He admits they're still refining some elements and encourages feedback from beta testers to guide the next iteration. Honesty, he believes, will earn trust more than any polished facade. As the demonstration ends, the crowd breaks into applause. It's not thunderous, this isn't a packed stadium, but it's warm, genuine, the kind of response that tells him they understand what he's trying to achieve. He catches glimpses of nodding heads, people smiling at one another, as if recognizing a solution they didn't realize they needed until now. A few phones snap photos of the screen. Journalists in the back scribble notes. Once off stage, he mingles with the audience. A seasoned investor approaches him, commending the platform's potential to surface untapped talent. A young entrepreneur, barely out of college, enthuses about finally having a centralized place to find mentors who understand her cultural context. Even a skeptical journalist admits the idea seems promising, less fluffy rhetoric than tangible support for those who've been sidelined. Elena joins him, and they share a quiet moment by a display table set up with brochures and sign-up instructions. Her eyes shine with relief and pride. They manage to sail through the event with only minor hiccups, and the enthusiasm they hope to spark is clearly there. Miguel steps over, grinning broadly. He's heard nothing but positive whispers, and he's certain word will spread. This event, he says, is just the beginning of something that can reshape perceptions in their industry. Carla and Roberto have made their way to the front, looking around with awe. Carla can't hide her smile as she sees people sincerely praising her son's work. Roberto stands beside her, arms folded, looking at Fernando as if seeing him in a new light, no longer just a boy with big ideas, but a man bringing those ideas to life. Lucas, bouncing slightly on his toes, gives Fernando a discreet thumbs up before disappearing into the crowd to nab more promotional stickers. In the hours following the event, Fernando and Elena receive numerous requests for beta access codes. Entrepreneurs ask how soon the platform will expand beyond beta. Mentors offer their services. Investors show interest in learning more once they see initial traction. As twilight deepens, the exhibition hall slowly empties, but the energy remains. They've created a spark, and now they must nurture it into a sustainable flame. That night, Fernando sits on the edge of his bed and reviews the day's highlights in his mind, the applause, the encouraging words, the investor who said, "You might be onto something important here," and the quiet look of respect in Miguel's eyes. He feels a sense of validation, not just for himself, but for everyone who has ever felt they didn't belong in the rooms where decisions were made. The platform is now public knowledge, and while it still faces 1,000 hurdles, scale, funding, building a loyal user base, he's proven something essential, that his vision resonates. That people are willing to listen, sign up, give it a chance. He falls asleep with the sounds of the day echoing in his ears, knowing that the real impact will be measured not by tonight's applause, but by the entrepreneurs who rise because of it, the mentors who guide them, and the communities they strengthen together. The great unveiling was a moment of truth, and he passed the test. Now it's time to get back to work, pushing forward with the same determination that brought him this far. In the weeks following the launch, Fernando's life shifts into a new rhythm that he barely recognizes. The platform's beta testers multiply steadily, and before he knows it, the user base surpasses the initial targets he and Elena had set. Entrepreneurs begin sharing their experiences online, stories of connecting with a mentor who finally understood their cultural perspective, of landing a small grant they discovered through the platform's listings, of receiving constructive feedback that helped them pivot their startup just in time. Each testimonial fuels the platform's growing reputation. As the community thrives, headlines start appearing in online business magazines and local tech blogs. Journalists highlight how Fernando, once brushed aside by traditional investors, is now empowering others who faced similar dismissals. They mention Elena's role in crafting a seamless user experience and Miguel's mentorship, which ensured the platform stayed true to its original vision. The narrative that emerges is not just about a new tech product, but about a movement aiming to democratize entrepreneurial opportunities. Invitations arrive in Fernando's inbox at a pace that surprises him. There's a local entrepreneurship panel at a cultural center, a guest slot on a startup-focused podcast, an interview for a social impact newsletter. Each appearance offers a chance to amplify his mission and to encourage both minority innovators and potential allies who now understand that supporting diversity is not just noble, it's also good business. He embraces these opportunities, though he's cautious not to lose himself in the praise. Behind every speech and interview is a responsibility to keep delivering on the platform's promise. One morning, as he's grabbing coffee with Elena in the co-working space, his phone buzzes with a message from an event organizer. They want him to speak at a national conference geared toward shaping public policy around tech and equity. Elena nearly spills her coffee in excitement, and Fernando's heart leaps. It's one thing to impress local audiences, but this is a national stage. If he can influence decision makers and institutional players, the platform's impact could extend even further, creating changes that might make it easier for others to follow in his footsteps. Amid the growing acclaim, the pressure also intensifies. The platform, though stable, needs to evolve. More users mean more diverse needs. He and Elena spend hours brainstorming feature enhancements, adding AI-driven recommendations, integrating with more funding databases, offering multilingual support to serve entrepreneurs whose first language isn't English. They debate each idea, balancing ambition against the risk of overcomplicating the user experience. Miguel advises them to move strategically. Growth is good, but only if they maintain the platform's integrity and focus. Time management becomes tricky. Fernando juggles answering a flood of emails, scheduling meetings with organizations interested in partnerships, reviewing user feedback, and continuing to develop the platform's next iteration with Elena's help. Some nights he returns home late, finding Carla still awake, a cup of herbal tea in hand. She listens as he recounts his day, nodding at his excitement and encouraging him to remember what matters most, helping people who once felt invisible find their voice in the market. Roberto, proud yet ever practical, suggests hiring a small team to handle support requests and operational tasks that are quickly piling up. Lucas chimes in with references he found online, other startups that scaled too fast and lost their essence. He doesn't want his brother to make the same mistake. Spurred by these conversations, Fernando decides it's time to add a few new members to the team. He hires a part-time operations manager to streamline daily tasks. He also brings on a UX researcher who can systematically track user feedback. These additions feel both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. He's no longer just a lone founder with a supportive ally in Elena, now he's a leader of a growing initiative. The shift requires him to learn new skills in delegation and trust, navigating the complexity of running what is effectively becoming a small social enterprise. As success stories continue to surface, the media's attention intensifies. A feature story appears in a well-regarded entrepreneurship magazine, describing the platform as a beacon of inclusive innovation. The article quotes entrepreneurs who credit the platform for their breakthroughs. One founder secured microloans that allowed them to open a storefront for their vegan bakery. Another found a mentor who helped refine their pitch deck until investors finally took notice. Each narrative reinforces the platform's core message: potential is everywhere, it simply needs the right environment to flourish. When Fernando speaks at his first major conference, he steps onto a stage far grander than that of the local exhibition hall. The audience includes policymakers, academic experts, and seasoned investors, all curious to hear about this platform that dares to challenge the status quo. He shares data on user engagement, success metrics from early adopters, and heartfelt stories of individuals who have found their footing. While there, he meets potential partners, people from accelerators, social venture funds, and advocacy groups who want to collaborate. He can almost feel the network expanding around him. Back home, Elena refines the code to handle heavier traffic and improve load times. Miguel helps him assess partnership offers, cautioning him to choose allies who align with their mission rather than chasing any big name that appears. Fernando's family provides a grounding presence. When he's tempted to say yes to everything, Carla gently reminds him that doing too much can dilute impact. Roberto nods in agreement, advising patience. Lucas cheers him on from the sidelines, sending him interesting articles about sustainable growth and inclusive business models. Amid all this, Fernando occasionally feels overwhelmed. He worries about keeping momentum without losing the platform's soul. He grapples with the responsibility that comes with influence, the nagging fear that if he slips up, it might reflect not just on him but on all those who invested their hopes in him. On these days, he revisits old notes, rereads mission statements, or talks to entrepreneurs who've benefited from the platform. Their stories center him, reminding him that the platform is not about ego or accolades, it's about impact. One evening, as dusk settles, he sits in the co-working space alongside Elena and Miguel. They look over analytics showing rising engagement, review user testimonials, and marvel at how far they've come. Miguel points out that each positive outcome is proof they're on the right track, and each challenge overcome makes them stronger. Elena raises a mug in a quiet toast to all the entrepreneurs finding their wings, to the mentors who share wisdom, and to the small team forging a path in uncharted territory. Fernando closes his eyes for a moment, letting gratitude settle in his chest. He's gone from a hopeful outsider to a recognized leader shaping dialogue on inclusion in tech. He never planned for fame or awards, but now that he has them, he intends to wield this influence responsibly. The next steps involve careful scaling, thoughtful partnerships, and continuing to evolve the platform based on real needs. As he leaves for the night, walking beneath streetlights that glimmer on quiet roads, he understands that rising influence is not an end in itself. It's a tool, one he can use to carve out more space for marginalized voices. Empowering others remains at the heart of everything he does, and he'll ensure the platform keeps that promise as it grows, reaches new heights, and changes more lives. Fernando sits at his familiar corner in the co-working space, the sunlight streaming in through tall windows, casting patterns on the floor. His laptop hums softly, and his inbox overflows with messages. Every day brings new opportunities, requests, and stories from entrepreneurs who've found their footing thanks to the platform. He's both proud and aware that success can be fickle if not carefully nurtured. He has no intention of becoming just another headline that fades with time. He wants longevity, sustainability, and a deep-rooted impact that extends beyond a momentary buzz. He and Elena have a plan for the next phase, strengthen the platform's foundations. They'll enhance user experience by streamlining navigation, integrating more robust search filters, and adding personalized recommendation engines. Fernando wants the interface to feel intuitive, almost as if it's reading users' minds, not to manipulate, but to serve them better. He imagines a newcomer logging in and immediately discovering resources tailored to their industry, stage of growth, and linguistic preferences. They begin with design sprints, huddling over sketches and wireframes, debating the merits of a sidebar menu versus a top navigation bar. Elena advocates for a minimalist approach. Too many bells and whistles distract from the core value. Fernando agrees, clarity and accessibility come first. He thinks about the entrepreneurs who balance day jobs and family obligations, who need quick, efficient support instead of getting lost in a maze of menus. As the code updates roll out, Miguel steps in as a steady voice of reason. He reminds them to keep their core mission at the forefront, empowering those who've historically been left out. Every feature should serve this mission. This means no adding trendy elements just for show. Instead, they focus on tools that foster mentorship and networking, virtual meeting rooms, secure messaging channels, and a calendar that syncs mentors' availability with Ment's schedules. Fernando also carves out time to mentor younger innovators in the community. He sets up informal sessions at the community center where a handful of aspiring entrepreneurs gather, notebooks in hand. One of these aspiring founders is Lucas, who's been quietly harboring a dream of launching a small eco-friendly delivery service. Fernando sits with his younger brother on a wooden bench outside after a session, the evening air warm and filled with the distant hum of city life. Lucas shares his ideas, sketches of logos, and a rough business plan. Fernando listens, occasionally nodding, his heart full of pride. He encourages Lucas to research similar models, connect with mentors through the platform, and not be discouraged by early snags. Mentoring others brings Fernando back to his early days, when he was the one searching for advice, hungry for validation and guidance. He takes care to remind these newcomers that setbacks aren't signs of failure but ingredients of growth. He teaches them what he's learned: define your mission clearly, seek allies who respect your vision, and never lose sight of the community you're serving. These sessions are informal, more conversation than lecture, and they end with the younger innovators feeling seen and valued. They walk away more confident, as if someone has turned on a light in a once-dim room. Back at the platform, user metrics show steady growth, but Fernando is more interested in the qualitative feedback. He reads messages from entrepreneurs who praise the new mentor matching feature, saying it saved them time and connected them with people who truly understand their challenges. Some share success stories, pitch decks refined after a mentor's input, a small round of funding secured after a recommendation from the platform's resource library. One entrepreneur even jokes that the platform has become their business compass, guiding them through unfamiliar territory. These stories reassure Fernando that the improvements are more than just cosmetic. They're enhancing the platform's real-world utility, making it a trusted ally rather than a superficial tool. Elena monitors server logs and performance metrics to ensure that the scaling efforts haven't slowed load times or introduced errors. So far, so good. It's not perfect, nothing ever is, but the foundation is stronger than ever, capable of supporting a growing user base and evolving needs. As media interest continues, Fernando uses interviews and panels to highlight the platform's deeper purpose. He talks about systemic change, about how technology can chip away at biases when combined with human mentorship. He reminds journalists and audiences that this isn't his story alone, it's the story of all the users making strides and inspiring others in turn. He emphasizes that sustaining impact requires constant listening and adaptation. Miguel looks on with approval, proud of how Fernando has matured into not only a builder of solutions, but also a spokesperson for a movement. Miguel suggests partnering with a well-respected nonprofit that supports minority business owners, integrating their training modules directly into the platform. Fernando loves the idea. He sees it as another layer of the foundation, ensuring the platform doesn't become stagnant or isolated from the broader ecosystem of support. At home, the family senses a new stability in Fernando's demeanor. He's still busy, busier than ever, but there's a calmness in the way he approaches problems. Carla remarks that he seems more at ease, as if he knows he's on the right path and trusts himself to navigate bumps in the road. Roberto, ever the pragmatist, nods approvingly at news of partnerships and updates, acknowledging that these steps ensure longevity. Lucas is thrilled with the mentorship sessions and occasionally tests out new platform features under Fernando's guidance. One afternoon, Elena and Fernando sit on a park bench near the co-working space, taking a rare break. The sun is gentle, and a breeze carries laughter from a nearby group of kids playing. They talk about what's next, maybe adding a feature that highlights local funding opportunities pinned on a map, or developing a structured mentorship program with defined milestones. Elena suggests a rating system for mentors, while Fernando considers a blog section with profiles of successful entrepreneurs who got their start here. Ideas flow easily, anchored in the principle that the platform exists to serve its community, not to chase vanity metrics or trends. Looking ahead, Fernando knows challenges will continue. Technology evolves, user needs shift, and competition may emerge. But he feels prepared. With each foundation he lays, strong features, genuine mentorship, strategic partnerships, and a culture of continuous improvement, he ensures that his success is not just a fleeting spark but a steady flame that can light others' paths for years to come. As dusk settles, he heads home with a lighter heart, thinking of all the entrepreneurs who will log in tomorrow, hopeful and eager. The platform is no longer a fragile seedling. It's rooting itself in solid ground, nourished by community, trust, and a mission that transcends one man's dream. It now belongs to everyone who believes that opportunity should not be a luxury, but a shared right. Fernando stands on a simple stage in his old neighborhood's community center, a place he hasn't visited in a while. The room is filled with people from all walks of life, entrepreneurs he's helped, curious neighbors, mentors who once guided him, and emerging innovators who look at him with reverence. He's here not for a press conference or a high-profile event, but for a modest celebration marking the platform's one-year anniversary. It's the kind of gathering that means the most, intimate, rooted in community, honest. He speaks without notes this time. He talks about how it all began with a vision born of frustration and hope, how he feared no one would care, how doors kept closing until he created his own door. He acknowledges Elena, who stands at the back, smiling and nodding, remembering the endless hours of coding and problem-solving. He mentions Miguel, seated in the front row, who believed in him early on and shared the wisdom of overcoming adversity. He turns to his family, Carla, Roberto, and Lucas, seated together, beaming with pride. Their unwavering faith gave him the courage to keep going when he felt most alone. In the audience, he spots an entrepreneur who once said the platform changed their life, allowing them to find the right mentor and secure funding to grow their small business into something sustainable. Another quietly wipes away a tear, remembering how the platform's resources helped them pivot their idea just before running out of savings. The crowd includes mentors, no longer invisible gatekeepers but active collaborators who've guided numerous newcomers into the realm of possibility. He thinks back to who he was when this journey began, a young black man with a vision that the world initially failed to see. Now, his presence is not only visible but influential. The platform's user base has grown beyond the local community and region, its name whispered in other cities and countries, recognized as a model for inclusive entrepreneurship. Journalists who once questioned him now cite his work as proof that change is possible, that technology can uplift rather than exclude. Reflecting on the path he's traveled, he knows his success is not singular. It's the product of collective effort, the mentors who offered their guidance, the investors who finally opened their minds, the community group that taught him solidarity, and the family that gave him both moral and emotional foundations. He realizes that this network of support forged him into who he is today, and he will never stop acknowledging that. His platform continues to evolve. New features emerge, guided by ongoing feedback. Entrepreneurs who benefited from it now mentor others in turn, creating a cycle of empowerment. The platform no longer needs Fernando's constant presence for validation. It stands on its own, fueled by a community that refuses to let old barriers remain. He can step back a little, focus on strategic partnerships, new horizons, maybe even help shape policy discussions that champion diversity in tech. He sees a horizon where the industry he once tiptoed into now welcomes people of all backgrounds and experiences. After his short speech, the applause is sincere and warm. People approach him, one by one, thanking him or asking how they can get involved. Lucas lingers behind, smiling, eager to share updates on his own budding venture. Carla and Roberto hold hands, watching their son shine in a way that transcends achievements on paper. Miguel pats Fernando's shoulder as he passes by, a reminder that wisdom and courage can transform dreams into realities. That night, Fernando walks through familiar streets, the neighborhood quiet under a star-strewn sky. He can still taste the joy of the celebration, hear the echoes of gratitude in his ears. He knows there will always be challenges ahead, but now he also knows how resilient a supportive network can make you, how far you can go when you refuse to let prejudice define your fate. His legacy is no longer a question mark, it's a living testament. By creating a platform that connects entrepreneurs, mentors, and resources, he's given rise to a legacy of empowerment that stretches beyond his own name. It's a ripple effect, one spark of inspiration igniting many more, forming constellations of talent that illuminate a once dim corner of the tech world. Future generations will look to his story and understand that no obstacle is absolute, that every barrier can be challenged, and that every voice, once unheard, can become a guiding star for others. As he rounds the final corner to his home, he takes a moment to breathe in the cool air. The invisible walls that once hemmed him in have crumbled, and in their place, he's built paths for countless others to follow. He smiles into the darkness, proud and hopeful, knowing that tomorrow more dreams will take flight, carried forward by the winds of understanding, solidarity, and unwavering belief. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to hear where you're watching from and your name. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you never miss our next inspiring tale. Together, let's continue shining a light on those who dare to break barriers and uplift one another.